Episode 71 at the Back of the Class podcast. I'm Glenn.
Bad time to take a drink there. I'm Ben.
And this week, or before we start off this week's episode, I'd like to say huge thank you to our sponsors: VIR Electrical, Balgriffin, Members First Credit Union, Cup Price Jewellers, Pizza and Grill,
Coco's Cakes and
Orem. And this week I'm joined by
Georgie Crawford.
Thanks for coming in.
Gee, how many sponsors do you have?
Oh, we've 7, is it?
More than 5 and anyway.
Wow, so you've got amazing support behind you.
Yeah, we do.
Brilliant. Fair play to you.
We're blessed with the people we have around us.
That's amazing.
For the people who may not know who you are or what you do, introduce yourself and what do you hope they'll learn off this episode?
Oh, it's such a good question. So my name's Georgie. I'm 41. I live in Dublin. My background is radio, so I studied journalism in college and I went out, and you probably know the radio station Spin 103.8, do you?
Mm-hmm. We had Marty Guilfoyle on.
Did you?
Yeah. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, you have all the brilliant guests. So yeah, I left school and I went into college and I got a job as a spinny, so I used to drive the pink cars around town when I was in college, and I really wanted to work in the newsroom. And so after my shift out on the road, I would go in and sit in the newsroom and learn the ropes so that I was ready to go when I got my opportunity. And the opportunity for a shift in the newsroom came up, and I went and worked in the newsroom for years and went off to have a baby then when I was 32. And basically how I created my business was I found a lump in my breast and I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was such a shocking time. I was absolutely devastated. But in my recovery, I went on this wellness journey. And then when it came to going back to work, I thought of an idea of a podcast, and I said, what if I could get women on to tell their stories at length? Because I was so used to radio where you just get a 10-minute slot and then you're out the door. And you know yourself, on podcasts you can just get into such deeper, brilliant conversations. Yeah. And so I reached out to some people, and you know, like you guys, I was getting a few big names, you know, like Martin Guilfoyle, you've had Calvin, you know, all people supporting you, and that happened for me, and I never forgot it, and I really appreciated it. So I was able to quit my job in radio, and I've never looked back.
And see, for your podcast, like, what was the vision for it at the start? Was it to get entrepreneurs on, or just all kinds of people?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So like, I didn't want it to be a cancer podcast because I didn't think people would want to listen to, you know, sad stories. I wanted to get empowering stories. So I thought, if I get women to talk about their businesses or a big tragedy that happened in their life that they overcame, or a challenge they faced, that I could help inspire other people. And so I never really had a formula for the podcast. I just wanted to talk to great people. And I'm 19 seasons in now, and I'm still connecting with amazing people. You know, I speak to wellness experts in the world like Mel Robbins and people like that, but then I also talk to the girl next door who has an even more inspiring story. You know, you guys probably know yourselves from out talking to people, it's, you know, the man in the shop could have the best story you've heard in years.
You can learn something off anybody.
Exactly. So yeah, I didn't really have a formula. I just knew in my heart what felt right, and I just followed that.
If you don't mind me asking, did it change your life at all when you found out that you had cancer? Or?
Yeah, I was completely devastated. Like, I found a lump in my breast, and like at the time, I didn't know that women in their 30s could get breast cancer. I just thought it was an older woman's disease. And I just had a baby. My baby was 7 months old. I was obsessed with her, and I just couldn't believe that in such a short space of time the best thing in my life happened, which was giving birth and having her healthy, gorgeous baby, to the worst thing, which was being told I had cancer.
And how come you went down the positive route? A lot of people when they face challenges, there's two roads you can go, negative or positive.
Yeah.
What made you go towards positive?
I think I felt like that was my only option, and probably because of my child. So I knew that, like, and I wasn't the type of person to read like parenting books or anything like that. I'm real, just do what I feel is right. And I knew that if she woke up every morning in her first year of being on this earth and I was crying in her face, that could have a really bad impact on her. So I was like, I don't feel positive for myself, but I don't want her to see her mum crying every day. So I was like, I have to get up. I have to go outside. I have to walk. I have to find a way to get through it. And you know yourself when you're in the shit, like it doesn't make sense at the time, but I really trusted that one day it would make sense. You know?
Do you believe in like everything happens for a reason?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's easy to say that when you get to survive something, or something good happens from something bad. There's probably people listening to this podcast that the worst things have happened to them, and like, how could they see that everything happens for a reason? So I think what I was presented with, I wanted to make the best of it, and I wanted to find a way through. But I suppose what came with it was, so with cancer, like from what we see of cancer, we see like people losing their hair or people dying and this great sadness around it. But when I went in to get my chemotherapy in hospital, I thought that it would be a really sad place to be. But everyone in the hospital was so happy and just living for each and every day that they had. And so I got a lot of good vibes from that. And I was surrounded by so much positive feelings and amazing people that you can't help but see the good in the world.
Do you believe in, like, sorry if I couldn't cross
No.
you, there's a book I've seen before and I think it's called Your Body Holds the Score.
Yes.
Do you believe in that kind of like perspective?
Now I do.
Yeah.
What's the perspective of Noel?
It's kind of like if your attitude kind of changes how your body reacts.
I actually
sort
had
of.
that question in my head. How important do you think being sort of positive and optimistic was in that journey of fighting? Because sometimes if you didn't have that mindset and you became a sort of victim of your surroundings, then that could be worse off for you, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such a good observation. And my friend gave me, Oprah Winfrey was not on my radar. Like, I didn't know much about Oprah other than she had this talk show and she was popular and people loved her. And my friend gave me her book, and actually Oprah only said it again today. I heard her saying it on a podcast. But in the book it said, in order to deal with anything or move through anything, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge it. And I read that line in chemotherapy and I was like, okay, so I have cancer. So I need to actually acknowledge that I do, because I think I knew I had it, but I was so freaked out about it that I didn't think about it, and I kept pushing the thought away. And when I was in chemotherapy, I was like, no, I have cancer. Like, I have to, there's no way I'm going to be able to heal unless I first acknowledge that this has happened to me, because I was going to hide my cancer from the world because I was still on maternity leave when I got sick. So I was like, maybe I can hide it. And then I was like, no, I have to acknowledge that this is happening to me. And then when we're talking about the body holding the score, like, we do carry so much that we don't even realise we're carrying. And when I went to therapy, like after my treatment, I was lucky enough to be able to go. And I was in this meditation that I was trying to do CBT because I was like, kept freaking out that it was going to come back. And my counsellor said to me, Georgie, where in your body are you holding all of this fear in your life? And without even realising, my hand went to my chest, and that's where my cancer was. And in that moment, I realised that all my stress, not just when I got diagnosed, but like for my whole life, I always carried it in my chest. And I'd so much to deal with and talk about that I hadn't acknowledged in my life before. And it was only when I actually truly dealt with things that had happened in my past and my cancer diagnosis that I was able to like break free from things that were holding me back.
Yeah, I do. I definitely do believe in like your body and like your. I believe in a sense of like your soul sort of carries a lot of, I don't know, like your past experiences. So like a lot of musicians talk about that, like when it's only when they write music they feel like they can actually express themselves because that's their way of like, I don't know, activating their soul in a sense.
Yeah.
Really.
This is like, how old are you guys?
17.
Oh my
18.
God. You're absolutely amazing the way you ask questions and look at the world. It's a gift to have at such a young age, because it took me till I was 32 to cop on to so much about life. And for you guys to be doing this when you're so young and people listening is incredible.
How much do you think you learned off your podcast when you first started?
So much, because do you know Wim Hof? I spoke to him on my podcast.
That's amazing.
You know, Mel Robbins, like reach out to these guys because they will get back to you. And so like there's people like him he's like, sometimes I'm like, what is my life talking to this guy? He's so mad, but in the best possible way. So for anyone listening, he's the guy, he's called the Iceman, and he gets into really cold water and he believes it can help you in all sorts of ways. But yeah, I learned something new every day from my podcast, and it feels like such a gift in my life. Like it's like one of my babies.
I think just listening to people, you always learn something. Like last week we took a loss, and like I didn't know what way to take it, so I found out one of my favourite rappers done a podcast, listened to him, and it's funny, I was questioning like manifestation and all that in the moment, and in the podcast he says himself, yeah, someone asked him, do you believe in manifestation? So I believe in it when it's going good, but when it's going bad, I just live my life. And it really changed my whole perspective as well, just from listening to that one podcast.
Yeah, and like, what do you guys love to do in your spare time apart from the podcast and things like that?
We don't have much spare time, do we? But we love what we do. Like we have a clothing brand and the podcast, and then Glenn does the commentary and that as well. And
yeah, football, I'd say, would be a hobby of mine. Or like, I like watching boxing as well.
Cool.
A few different things.
And how do you know each other?
We met on an immersion project
Okay.
in school. In fourth year, we went over to Kenya.
Did you?
And funny enough, it's a place where your perspective does change a lot.
Yeah.
And we ended up meeting over there, yeah.
And
oh, wow.
we just got talking, got close, and as soon as we got back, we started.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see you on the Late Late Show one day.
Yeah,
or
100%.
beyond.
Probably be next year.
Yeah.
And do you think your outlook on like cancer has changed from what it was when you first found out you had it? Do you think of a different, like if you were to give advice to someone now who's been diagnosed with breast cancer, like what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, well, I definitely thought that for like seconds after I was told I had cancer, I thought I was going to die. And then I was out in Beaumont Hospital, and Professor Arnie Hill out there, he was incredible, like reassured me straight away. And he said that breast cancer is the most common cancer in women, and I had the most common type of breast cancer. And so he was very reassuring straight away. I'm still absolutely terrified of cancer, and I still have like severe PTSD, and it's really hard sometimes for me to have like a normal pain somewhere in my body and not think that I have cancer. It was so funny. I was running with a girl who had breast cancer recently, and she said she got a pain in her toe, and she convinced herself that her cancer had come back and she now had cancer of her toe. And that sounds to somebody who hasn't had cancer as completely mad. But when you're in it and when you have that fear, it is so hard to know how to cope with it. But I have more understanding of the cancer world. I know about treatments, and I see people are all around me surviving cancer, which definitely makes me feel a little bit more safe. But yeah, it's definitely scary.
How do you move past something like that?
Do you know Dr. Brian Penny?
Yeah, we had
Had him on the
Did you?
podcast.
Yeah.
I went to see Brian. I know you know Jerry as well. So
Meeting Brian tomorrow.
are you?
Yeah.
Oh, Saturday.
Saturday.
For what?
Just for a coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Brian. So yeah, Brian was doing Jerry's show and out in the National Concert Hall, and Jerry, you know, we're all really good friends, and Jerry said there's a ticket for you at the front door, and I had just, you know, had my baby, so I was like, my second baby, so I was like, yeah, I'll pop in. So it was so weird that I arrived in to watch the bit with that he was interviewing Brian, and I was like, oh, brilliant, like two of my favourites. And Brian said something, and like, you know, when you, well, I don't know if you guys cry in public, but you know, when like one tear comes and then you're like, oh shit, like I can't control this, and
It breaks
then
the gates.
it broke the gates. And Brian said, you know, we're all so obsessed and focused on healing our trauma and finding a way to release it and finding a way to move on. He said, but Jerry, like my trauma will always be a part of me, and it's actually who makes up a part of who I am. And it contributes to how I show up in the world and the type of person that I have evolved into. And in that moment, I realised that for so many years, I'd been trying to like cure myself of my trauma. And when he said that, it like gave me permission to carry it a little bit. And it was one of the most memorable moments of my life. And aren't we lucky to have people like Brian Penny and Jerry in the world? But yeah, so I know that my cancer, my trauma will always be a part of me, and it made me a better person. So maybe I should stop obsessing with trying to let it go and kind of bring it along the way with me.
My perspective on trauma is it never really leaves you. Like, people think it's just going to automatically disappear one night, but in reality, it never really leaves you, but you get stronger, so you know how to deal with it better. So it's like...
Just Jay Shetty says, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Carry it, or whatever.
You just learn to carry it better.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm doing now, you know?
Tell us a bit about when you were able to quit your job and go full-time with the podcast. That must have been some achievement.
I was delighted with that. I worked in radio. I loved radio, but I'd gone back to work at 98 FM and I was a newsreader. So I'd start work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was going in every day and talking about like really negative things like murders and, you know, cancer and drugs and all of this, you know, the worst stories of the day that you could find. I was repeating them on the radio, and it just started to get in on me a bit. And I was like, you know, I've been through cancer, I've had a baby, I'm having these really positive conversations on my podcast, and now it's not like I quit my job and never listened to the news again. I still am connected to what's happening in the world, but I didn't want to be the person delivering the bad news all day, every day. And so I was really scared, and I went on my holidays and I asked for a sign, which probably sounds so stupid, but I did. I asked for a sign. I read Gabby Bernstein's book, The Universe Has Your Back, and in it she said, ask for a sign if you've got this big decision to make. And I did, and I got my sign that day, and I was like, Jamie, I'm quitting my job, that's my husband. And he was like, okay, I'll support you, just do whatever you need to do. And I left.
Were you in a financial position to be able to do that, or was it a bit of a risk that you made work?
I had a job that I didn't make very much money. You know, as a journalist on a radio show, it's shift work. It's, you know, like I you know, contributed towards our mortgage. My husband Jamie had a better job, and he was like, look, you know, we can cut back and I can pay the mortgage and we'll be grand. He wanted me just to be well, because I think he could see me spiraling again. And so I was very privileged to be able to quit my job. But I also had this feeling that my podcast was going to start making me money, and my business, you know, people were asking me to do corporate talks and stuff like that. And I was like, in my little side hustle, if I can match my salary that I'm making on radio, well then that's great, you know. And so I took the risk and I went.
That's my home screen. Use your job to fund your business. Use your business to fund your freedom.
Yes.
And how important, I think that...
Oh, I love that.
Your surroundings are so important. I believe that, like, deeply. We had Keith Barry on the podcast, and he was talking to us a bit about your subconscious thoughts and how they affect you. And he was saying, even if you're scrolling on TikTok today and you come across a really negative video with negative comments, and you take all of that in and you just scroll and you think that didn't affect you, maybe 2-3 weeks from now you just wake up and you're in a horrible mood and you're angry at the world and you don't know why. He was saying sometimes that video could be sitting in your subconscious thoughts without you even knowing it. And even, like, did you ever hear I think I said this a few times in the podcast now, but did you ever hear of the skydiving experiment?
No.
There was an office, and they took 10 different workers from one floor and 10 different workers from another floor, and they brought them somewhere to do this experiment, and they made 10 of them run on a treadmill for a certain amount of time till they sweated. They collected their sweat samples. They brought the other 10 out skydiving, and they sweated the same amount from skydiving. They collected their sweat samples. They got a third group of people in, and they made them smell the sweat samples. And the people who smelled the treadmill sweat samples, they were like, just smells like sweat, like doesn't really smell like anything. And the people that smelled the skydiving sweat samples, something activated in their brain, and they felt the same fear for a split second that the people who actually went skydiving felt, and they didn't even know they went skydiving. It was just something, maybe a hormone in the sweat or something that just activated in their brain. That just shows, like, your surroundings really affect you, even if you don't know it. Like,
and that's the thing. Like, I drive into work, okay, and I sound unhinged when I tell this story, but I was so afraid I was going to get cancer again that on the night before I go to work, I'd cut up loads of raw carrots, right? And I'd get up at 4:30 and I'd get into my car, and I was like, okay, so like I've had 6 hours sleep. That's not enough to be like healthy. And then I'd be like, okay, but I have these carrots and I'm going to eat these carrots. And I'd be like on my way in crying, like in pitch dark, eating raw carrots, because I'm like, at least the carrots will keep me alive. Going into work, reading all of these negative stories and coming home, and I was a big bag of fear, and I could feel myself going backwards because my podcast was pulling me forwards. And I was like, I don't think I'd ever really chosen myself before in many decisions in my life. I always thought about other people, and I was like, no, I have to do this for me, like to stay alive, to thrive. Like, I have to go now. And it was the best thing I ever did. That's
like the thing you sent me of
what was it?
The monk, I can't think of his name.
Don't mess with the water.
Yeah.
He basically says it's like, if you're on this journey and you're constantly focused on what you don't want or what you want, he said you're basically messing with the water. So it's like, if you're focusing on the things that you don't want and you're putting your hand in the water and you're pushing the water away from you, eventually that water's going to flow straight back to you. And then as well, if you start focusing on what you do want and you try and collect that water and pull it all close, eventually it's going to go back out to where it was. He said you should just walk through the water and continue on that journey. Like, whatever your journey is, just continue. He said, don't mess with the water.
Yeah. And I felt like the world was showing me a way, a path. And I was like, if I just go back, because when you get sick, loads of people are like, I bet you can't wait to go back to normal. And fear would tell us, oh yeah, I can't wait to go back to normal. But actually, I didn't want to go back to normal. I just wanted to keep walking forward. I didn't want to go back. And I was really lucky that I had the support around me to do that. And then, sure, exactly what you were saying there with the water, like I stopped focusing on who I thought I was and just turned all my attention to who I wanted to become, which was like a happy, healthy, person with a great business that helps other people. And I was like, just focus on that for now and everything else will follow. And the day I quit my job, 4 hours later, I got a contract to do 20 corporate talks, and the amount of money was the contract over a certain amount of time was the same as my salary in work, but I didn't get that until I quit. Like, if I had got that first, it would have been so easy to quit my job, but I needed, like, that wasn't given to me until I did the hard thing first, which was do the right thing for me.
So you had to burn the boats.
Yeah.
How important is risk in your journey?
I was talking to this amazing guy called Guy O'Leary. He was on my podcast. He was given a really bad cancer diagnosis and he had a 12% chance of survival, and he is thriving now 7 years on. And we were standing outside the podcast studio and I had a great chat with him, and he's like, oh, I don't take risks anymore. And I was like, oh, I feel that, because you get real scared of things, you know. I'm not as I would take risks in business, but I don't take risks in my personal life much. Like, even now we bring people around the world to do half marathons, and sometimes I'm on a flight to America and I'm like, how did I create a business where I have to get on like 15, 20 airplanes a year and leave my family and like take all of these risks? So like, I do take risks, but I'm much more scared than I used to be.
What made you write the book then? Your own book, isn't it?
Yeah, I wrote the book because I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that before. I wrote the book because I felt like I wanted to capture how I felt at that time, and I knew that I'd kind of forget. And so writing the book, I wanted to write it all down just for my kids, and if anyone bought it, then that was a bonus. And I loved that process. It takes a lot to write a book in terms of your time, your creative, energy and things like that. But I'm glad I did it. If I was doing another book now, I'd do it a little bit differently. I think I would pick one idea and create an entire book around that, as opposed to just putting it all in there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like, the way Mel Robbins would have the let them theory, or we might read that book like Eat That Frog or something like that. So just one idea, that's where I think I'd go for my second book.
It's hard enough writing a book, isn't it? Like I think it was Martha Stewart was talking about, she has like 19 books out.
Yeah.
I was thinking that's crazy work ethic. Like.
Yeah.
How do you keep your business and your personal life separate?
Great question, because I actually saved it. I don't think there's coverage down here, but so I used to say that the good glow, which is what my business is called, was my beating heart. I used to say that to people. Oh my God, the good glow. And I was so focused on the podcast and who the next guest was and what, it was everything. And then I started to realize that if I'd have a bad week in business, then I would be not great at home mentally. And then when I had a good week in business, I was the best person to be around. And then I started to realize that I was really suffering in that. And I knew I had to separate myself from what I did. And I don't think I'd ever done that, even back in the radio days. And so I have to separate my self-worth. If the good glow disappears tomorrow, I have to be okay with who I am. And actually disconnecting my self-worth from what I do is really important to me now.
Where do you get your confidence from?
Would you think I'm confident?
Yeah.
So you have not quiet confidence.
I love people. So if I'm getting a good vibe off people, I feel confident. Do you know what I mean? To be myself. But if I'm walk into a room and I don't feel very welcome, or I'm getting a weird vibe, then I'm not confident.
Right.
So can you relate to that?
You read the room, sort of.
Yeah. And maybe I should show up the same way in every situation, but I think that's easier said than done. I love people. I love connecting with people. I love hearing all different types of stories. Like, I'm dying to know now about your stories, and, I want to interview you guys. But I think I get it from a feeling the more safe I feel, the more confident I feel.
Very important to keep the negative people away then, if that's how you feed your confidence.
Yeah.
How do you deal with like your environment? Like,
So I'm not. There's not too many. There's not. I wouldn't have a lot of negative people around. I think. I don't read things like online or anything. I don't go looking for it. It was hard when I first came out of the cancer, or I did surrogacy. So our second baby was born in Tbilisi, Georgia. So we went there, and another lady carried my baby, and I would put up photos of her, for example, or share photos from Tbilisi, Georgia, which is an amazing part of the world, and people would say really bad things, like I couldn't believe it. And it wasn't necessarily anyone that followed me, but it was people, you know, who would specifically troll people who go on a surrogacy journey or whatever. And so
that's crazy, isn't it? People,
it's crazy.
Just targets, like, it's mad that people have that much time or that much negativity in their life that they need to pick a certain category and obsess about hating on that category. It's crazy,
Yeah.
I think.
And it's like becomes people's life, you know.
Yeah.
So I would just kind of try to send everyone as much love as possible. That's the way I deal with it.
What was Mel Robbins like?
She's tough. Like, but in the best possible way. Like, she showed up, like, she had her shit together. She gave it to me straight. And then she was gone.
She had the 5-second rule, and she gets her book.
I listened to her podcast with Jay Shetty, and I was going through a lot of negativity at the time, and just things she was saying, it's just like, it really hits home, everything she says, and everything she says makes sense as well, doesn't it? But it's because she lived through it. Like, do you reckon?
Oprah is one of the goats as well. I'd love to. She has loads of books, but I don't think she has an autobiography yet.
Yeah.
So I'd love to read that if she did ever bring that out.
Do you think anything Mel said with your time or stuck with you or helped you in a way?
Yeah, she said she was talking about the 5-second rule, and basically her husband, his name's Christopher Robin, had a business and he was going bankrupt, and she, you know, she wasn't Mel Robbins as we know now back then, and she was lying on the couch and she was drinking whiskey, and she basically was lying there and she felt like a loser. Basically, she said she was just couldn't get the kids together, like just couldn't motivate herself, couldn't do anything. And then she said she was lying there and she saw a rocket ship taking off on the TV, and the announcer was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the rocket went off, and that's where the 5-second rule came from. So then the next day she was lying in bed and she's like, I'm going to be just like that rocket ship. And so she said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she got up. And I use that now to you know, make appointments that I put off, or scary things. I'll get my phone, I'll be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll send the text, or I'll make the phone call, or I'll do the hard thing. And so that stayed with me. And then, like, who she's become since then is incredible.
Who would your dream podcast guest be?
Definitely Oprah.
Yeah.
Definitely
she'd be
Oprah.
up there for us as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And who else would you like?
Drake.
Drake, yeah.
Drake would be an amazing one. I'd like Phil Knight as well.
Yeah.
Phil Knight would be amazing.
He doesn't do many podcasts either, so he'd be one that, like, I like getting people on that don't really do many interviews, because that's where you can find out what type of person they are.
Yeah.
So he'd be up there, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good list.
Yeah.
Anyone in Ireland that you're looking for at the moment?
Anyone in Ireland?
Suzanne Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Suzanne.
She'd be an amazing guest. She'd really...
Paul Mescal.
Yeah.
We're in talks with Paul at the minute, so that definitely will be
really
completed soon.
Oh my! How do you guys get all these really good guests?
It's hard work. We just show it. Yeah.
Just great. We're always there. We say we're like a bad smell when we want something. We can't get rid of us.
Oh, fair play to you.
Until we get it, you know what I mean?
That's unreal.
What would you say is the best lesson you've got through your journey so far?
I think Martha Beck is Oprah's life coach, and she's brilliant. And I was speaking to her, and she said sometimes when you're in the middle of, I was trying to make a decision on having my second baby and whether we should go down the route to Georgia to have her. But I was so confused, I couldn't make a decision. And so I said to her, like, why can't I make a decision? And she was like, when you're in the middle of something, you can't see the wood from the trees, you can't make decisions. And so when you come through it, ask yourself what makes you feel warm and what makes you feel cold, and just do the things that make you feel warm and move away from the things that make you feel cold. And I was like, oh, that's so simple, but I've never forgotten that, and I try to live my life like that.
You're not far off, Oprah, if you're talking to our life coach.
Yeah, well, I'm like, can you put in a good word for me?
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Do you know Riyadh Khalaf? He used to work in Spin, and he's the guy who went viral last year because he found a duck egg in England, and he basically raised this. He found a duck egg on the side of the road, right? And who would think to pick it up? But he picked it up, put it in a little incubator thing in his house, and grew this duck, basically. And he's called Spike. But I used to sit beside Riyadh in Spin. He's such a creative guy. You guys would love him. And he came up with this documentary once, and he wanted to pitch it called Finding Oprah. So basically, you just get a flight to America, and then you just go and you just try to find Oprah through word of mouth. You know, that like in Ireland, what do they say? It's the 5 degrees of separation or the 3 degrees of separation, and go and find her and make a TV show out of it. And so I think if he does that, then that might be my way to get to Oprah.
Sure, we do that all the time. We done that for 50 cents.
She's a
went
weird
over 5 days.
She does do a lot of podcasts, but she's never went on Jay Shetty's podcast. She hasn't been on Emma Grade's podcast.
Yeah.
She kind of goes on like niche podcasts, which is a weird one.
Yeah.
Her life coach must be some qualification. Like, imagine saying that you're Oprah's life
I
coach.
know.
Like, that'd be nearly as big as getting Oprah, I think.
Yeah, and she's so wise, and she's brilliant. I absolutely loved her.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So we do, like I probably told you, that we do the running now, and we get so much out of that. So me and Jamie, we went to do the New York Half Marathon. It was just the two of us in 2022. And when we got to the finish line, I was like to Jamie, oh, we have to bring people with us next year. And so now we've brought over 650 people to New York. We've done the Alps twice, Chicago, Rome. We're going off to Lake Garda next week. And so that's become a huge part of our business, and it brings us nothing but joy.
That must be a serious pinch me mom, bringing people to New York, the Alps, like Lake Garda. That's amazing.
And they're the best people. Like we've met so many friends from it, and yeah, we call ourselves Team Good Glow, and we go off, and you know, there's people who I'm lucky enough that they share their story with me on those trips, that the things that people on these trips have overcome and done with their lives. And then, you know, the stories that we tell ourselves, like, I am not a runner, and then they find themselves training, and then they can actually do it. It's amazing. So we love that side of the business. I love the podcast. I love my podcast with Claire Solon, and I love my podcast that I do with Jerry, because I learn so much from him. So yeah, I don't know where we'll be in 5 years, but please God, we'll just keep following what's making us feel warm, and then hopefully, you know, things will stay well for us.
Do you think you found your purpose?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
I think it is to... So, like, we have the fancy thing on the website about, you know, creating meaningful experiences for people. But I think actually what my purpose is to give women space to tell their stories and to be heard. And I feel so privileged that I get to hold space for women to tell their stories, you know? And like, some of the stories that I've heard on the Good Glow are just incredible. And to think that, you know, 99.9% of those women have been Irish women, you know? I think what cancer gave me, another thing that it gave me, and it gave me more things than it took from me, was like friendships. with women. And just, I feel like when I got sick, I got put into this like different part of the world in terms of like, I just connect with people in a different way, you know?
That J. Cole actually says that. He'd be one of my dream guests. Well, he says, it's crazy. I only notice the stars when it's dark out. And that's the same with friends now. When things are tough and things are dark, you really find out who the stars are.
Yeah.
What do you think is the secret to your success?
I think being a good listener. I actually think that's the whole thing of every part of my business. Like even now with us speaking here.
See the way you say being a good listener, do you mean like when you get knowledge, like you apply your knowledge, like apply knowledge?
Yeah, but also listening and but not making everything about myself, and actually being having just knowing when to speak and when not to speak. And I think I've always been like that in my life, but especially since I got sick, just hearing people in a different way to how I'd hear them before. And so like even here with me doing so much talking, like this feels a little bit uncomfortable for me. Like I much prefer to be sitting where you guys are sitting. I want to hear your stories more than I want to hear myself speaking, you know. So I think being a listener has helped me so much in my podcast, but then so much on our trips, and it's helped me then as well deepen my relationships that I have in my personal life as well.
When you do your corporate talks, what do you usually speak about?
Well, so I'd speak about burnout a lot. So when I was in spin, I definitely suffered a lot from burnout, and I think so. One day when I was in chemo, I remember adding up all the hours that I worked through my lunch break, and it came for 10 years. It came to 2,400. So 2,400 hours that I didn't take, you know, a break or step outside or, you know, nourish myself. I always had lunch at my desk. I was always go. So I tried to go in to tell my story, but also just to remind people to take better care of themselves, because I didn't. Not only in things like nourishment and fresh air and exercise and things like that, but also I was pretty hard on myself before I got sick, you know, in terms of my thoughts, and telling myself like that I wasn't good enough to work in radio or get a promotion or do anything of meaning, start my own business. Like I didn't think I could do any of that stuff until I got sick, until I got the courage, till I felt like I had no other option. But so yeah, I tried to go in and tell my story, because there is so many people that like sit at their desks and they're just beating themselves up all day every day, because they're so focused on what other people think, how much money they're making, what job they can get next, what promotion, you know, what car they're driving, and actually none of that shit matters. It doesn't, you know, when I was sitting in Beaumont Hospital and Professor Hill was telling me I had cancer, I wasn't thinking about my promotion or what car I was driving or anything that I once cared about. All I cared about was the people who I loved and the people who loved me. And when I was in chemo, I remember like actually loving myself for the first time, and I couldn't believe that I'd been so mean to myself for so many years, you know. And so I tried to go out to connect with people who are just beating themselves up all day long.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever heard or received?
I suppose it's probably something as simple as just let people in, because I think it can be so like when I had Pia, now I have an amazing mum, an amazing mother-in-law, and they helped me a lot when I had a baby, but it was a very kind of, I isolated myself a lot. I didn't kind of get involved in my local community. I didn't go to any of the breastfeeding groups. It was very like solo journey for me. And so I wish maybe in my maternity leave that I had have just let people in a little bit more, because maybe I was suffering a little bit when I had my baby. I didn't really know, maybe with my mental health a little bit. So the best thing, I suppose, that I've allowed since 2017 is for people to help me.
Is there anything you wish we had have asked you, or something you think we can improve going into the next episode?
No, I think you're both amazing.
Thanks a lot.
I think, like, this is, you know, when I was talking about what makes you feel warm, what makes you feel cold, like, Glenn, you're incredible, and I am so annoying on getting back to people, and it's something actually that I really want to get better at, you know, but I just find life can be overwhelming sometimes. But I really admired your determination and, you know, making this happen today and being so facilitating of me. And, you know, you were saying, you know, any day we'll make it happen, and I really admire that. And the reason that why I'm here is because I knew that this conversation would make me feel warm. And I didn't know that, you know, you'd had all these greats on your podcast before me, and I'm honoured to sit here with you guys, and I really hope that we can keep in touch. I'm going to be listening now. I'll be listening to all the podcasts. I'm going to listen to the Calvin one on my way home. And I just really admire young people who are doing good in the world. So I hope you keep in touch with me.
Thanks a lot. We definitely will. It's been a pleasure. Anything you'd like to promote before we?
What would I like to promote? Yeah, I have a run club. It's called the Good Glow Run Club, so you can check it out on thegoodglow.ie.
That's a great name as well, by the way.
Do you like it?
I do like that.
The reason I called it the Good Glow is because when I was when I was getting better and my hair was growing back and stuff like that, people would always say, "Oh, you're glowing," and then it made me feel like I was alive again. So it was called The Good Glow. But yeah, we have our own club, and my podcast is called The Good Glow if anyone wants to listen after listening to your brilliant podcast.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Episode 71 wrapped up.